All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of the Midlife Motorheads podcast. Gene, I'm excited. We got a returning guest today.
Yeah, we're going to bring back Mr. Jeffrey Coe, talk to us about his recent project. Before we get started, I got a shout out to the River City Rippers. They sent me this nice fine t-shirt to wear.
Very nice.
Right? They made one in extra large. And I also want to do a shout out to not one of our sponsors, but and Jeff, you've been following my build, right? My 968 turbo build.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today I gave it juice. We hooked it to the battery for the first time.
Okay.
Epic day.
No smoke? No smoke?
No, as my friend Fonzie says, don't let the smoke out. Keep the smoke in the wires. No smoke.
That's a good sign.
But it wouldn't communicate with my laptop, and I figured out since why. But
okay.
I printed out, and I'm going to show this to you guys. I printed out the Infinity user guide.
Nice.
Oh my God.
Holy cow. How big's the font? Wow. Oof.
Yeah.
All right.
My wife says to me, "You're not going to read all that, are you?" So if you're wondering in the next 6 or 8 weeks, what's Gene doing? That's what I'm doing.
All right. Very good.
How many reams of paper is that? At least one.
It's a full ream. 400 pages. And a ream is 500 pages. So it's a full ream. But yeah, got to do that. But that was a day in the life of the 968 and Gene today. We were printing and doing that kind of stuff.
Very good.
So Jeff, thanks for joining back with us. I think you mentioned on Renlist that you had a little story to tell with your latest project, and that you were going to jump on a podcast. And I thought, I bet I know whose podcast that's going to be. He's going to join the Midlife Motorheads and talk about his car. So Jeff, just bring us up to speed, how you acquired the vehicle, and walk us through the story, because I think it's pretty much fascinating story that you love this car that much.
All right. Well, Gene and Trotty, you guys are privileged to hear this story first. I will probably, when I have more time, going to do at least a couple of articles for the 968 Register, and probably one for my Porsche Club region. So you guys are hearing it first.
We're getting the scoop.
That's right. So as you guys know, I've been a 968 fan for a long time, having purchased my first one in 1996. And so having in the mint green cab, which I purchased in 2007, and the speed yellow coupe, which I purchased in 2011, you would think I'd pretty much be happy. And I'm married as well, so you would think that might have some kind of bearing on whether or not I was going to get any more acquisitions. But that said, I'm always looking in the 968 market. And one day back in late, probably December of 2016, I happened to be cruising eBay, and I saw a 968 up for parts, advertised as parts or restoration. So it was a white car, and I didn't think anything too much of it, but I decided I'd go take a look at it. So as far as the ad goes, and so I jumped in, and I immediately was struck by the interior. And now I've seen people do some custom interiors, but this one didn't look custom, but it did look unusual. And so and the reason it was unusual, it was red, and red interior 968s are like hen's teeth. Of the 4,242 968s made for North America, only 5 of them had red interiors. And so the VIN was listed. I went over to my database, and sure enough, I confirmed this was one of them. This was a 1992 Grand Prix white coupe. But what made it unusual is that it had the very limited edition, very expensive Matador red special leather interior. So this was one of two made. They were both twins, white coupes with this black and red interior. And here it was looking in front of me. And so I knew it was a special car, and I was just fascinated to see it. That interior option cost over $5,000 back in 1992, so you can tell why it was rare at the time. But it was just very unusual.
I wonder how much that would be in today's dollars, Jeff.
That's probably twice that, at least, probably 10 grand or whatever. So so definitely. But it was that you could definitely tell when I looked at it. It had a factory look to it. There's a lot of black. So Gene, I'll send you a picture. But the upper part of the car is all black, and the lower parts are what's red, the leathers and the carpeting. But there's still plenty of black even on the console and stuff. So it's really quite attractive, and it's not a lipstick red. It's like an apple skin red. So it's very sharp. That's
a deviated interior, correct?
No, it's not considered deviated. It was a factory package, but they called it special full leather. So that everything is covered in leather. The seats, both front and back, the rear seats, the door panels, the console, and the lower dash, and the e-brake handle are all covered and stitched in this Matador red leather. And Gene, another thing that makes it really cool, I didn't know this at the time, but it wasn't until after I bought the car, is the leather is what they call marbled. So if you were to look at the leather, it has like this, it looks like clouds. It's got like a texture to it. And apparently that was something they did back in the 90s, because BMW and a few other companies tried it as well. But it's very unusual, and but very neat at the same time. So the one problem, so I looked at the car on eBay and it looked pretty neat, but one problem, the reason it was listed in the parts area is it had been hit hard in the driver's side rear. Strange hit. It did not smash the rear window, the rear hatch. That was still there, but you could tell it had been hit hard underneath. The quarter panel was buckled. The entire rear section of the car was buckled. It was definitely hurting. But it looked good. The front looked good. I had 113,000 miles on it, and I was interested. So, they had a full set of 17-inch Cup 1 wheels on it too, Gene, which you know are pretty desirable to get a handle on as well.
Were the front 7.5s?
Yes, 7.5s in the front.
Oh, so they're real, huh?
Yep. And they were original on the car. So I got on the phone. I called the seller, and to make a long story short, we worked it out. I bought the car and ended up having it shipped back to Connecticut. So
where was it?
It was in Colorado.
Wow.
So I got the car, and again, I knew that if it wasn't going to work out as a project, I could always use it for parts. They had plenty of good parts. I would have needed to do that, but it was definitely going to be. I definitely had that to fall back on. As you know, the wheels alone were close to $2,000. So I knew I was pretty much covered in my investment.
Yeah.
The other thing that made it attractive to me is I have bodywork experience. I worked at a body shop for a number of years when I was in college, and I've done bodywork through the years on some of my older muscle cars and things like that. So I wasn't afraid of doing a bodywork type project. The other thing that made a big difference on this car is it was a rear end collision as opposed to a front end collision. Front end, you get into the suspension and all that other stuff, and this was in the rear. And although it was a nasty hit, it was still in the rear, and I knew it was more doable because of that.
Yeah.
So the car arrived in January of 2017, and she was hurting. Like I said, the quarter panel was buckled and everything else. But it didn't look bad. I was not disappointed with what I had gotten into. So the car had sat for about 10 years, and it had not been run, and it did not run. So the first thing I did was my first order of business was to get the car running. So I went out and got a battery and got the car to turn over, but it wouldn't start. So after playing with it for a little while, figured out it was the fuel pump that was frozen up. Ended up replacing the fuel pump, and that was quite an experience. I think it was February or maybe early March, that I got it diagnosed and got the new fuel pump in and put it in. And then hearing that thing come alive, Gene, after 10 years was amazing. You know, it had that, and trying to come alive, and slowly but surely it came alive. And again, that's just testifies to the Bosch fuel injection system that was standard equipment on our 968s.
Sure.
So, but it did come back to life and it ran good. So that was a very, very good thing. Now, the other thing, the next, once it was running, which was a great thing, the next order of business was the back of the car had been hit so hard that you could no longer have the rear wheel and tire on. They had to put the spare on it to get it to move because it had been pushed back so much it was right up against the tire and wheel. Wow. So I wanted to get the car rollable in addition to runnable. And so I had a buddy who has a body shop, and he had somebody that with access to a frame machine. So March of 2017, shipped the car over to my buddy's place in next town over, and had this guy pull the frame, and so that made a big difference. Straightened it out, as far as the four corners of the car, and I was able to put the Cup 1 back on and have the car drivable. So it was really, with those two improvements, it was looking pretty good at that point.
Yeah.
Jeff, is it an automatic or manual?
It's a 6-speed manual.
Nice.
Yep. And other than the interior, it's got the Cup 1 wheels, the 17-inch Cup 1 wheels, and I think that's about it for options. It's originally out of Texas when it was sold new. I had the paperwork and stuff. So the windows were tinted and stuff. It was pretty, had a lot of, you could tell it'd been in a hot climate for most of its life.
Where did its twin get delivered to, Jeff?
Ohio. And I have not seen it, Gene. I think it's still around, but I know it went to Ohio. Last time when I looked for it, it was in Ohio. I checked the Carfax, and that's where it was.
I wonder, you would think if it was a dealer ordered car with that interior, they would have loaded it up, right, with other things like the sports suspension or something like that. It's kind of odd that they dump all that money into, because in today's dollars, I looked it up as we were talking. You were right, $10,000 is like $98 to $100 in today's dollars.
Right.
To spend that much on an interior and yet not get other things. It's kind of. Did it have the crest, the colored crest?
Nope.
Wilson. Wow, that's just crazy.
Yeah. The other car, the twin, has more options, but I like mine better because the one option it does not have that mine does is those Cup 1 wheels. And just like I do, they make such a difference in the look of the car. So so other than the interior and the wheels, that's the only option. Doesn't even have the painted spoiler, Gene.
Huh.
So back to the story. So then looking at the way the car was damaged, I knew it had sustained damage in multiple components of the rear end, to the point where you weren't going to buy the individual pieces. You were going to buy a clip. And so I went looking for a clip, and luckily within a month or two, I found up in Massachusetts, and I live in Connecticut, a 968 had been clocked in the front, a nice 94. And but the back end was beautiful, and so I called them, and fortunately 968s aren't that expensive, so I drove up to Massachusetts, looked at the car. It was just what I needed. I could buy the entire rear clip of the car for probably about, I think I spent around $1,200, and that was everything: quarter panel, rear tail panel section, a part of the roof. Part of the other quarter panel, the trunk floor, the spare tire well, the inner fender well, the entire wheel well on the driver's side, and all that stuff. And I needed it all. So it was perfect. It was perfect to be able to pick up that section. And my brother-in-law was doing deliveries up there, so he was kind enough to go pick it up for me on one of his deliveries and bring it back here to Connecticut. So he dropped it off at the house, and with that, I had everything I needed to put this thing back together again. But things sometimes go strange. So I was looking good. I made a lot of progress in 2017. But then, as we know, life can sometimes throw you a curveball. And my mother-in-law got sick, and I had to take care of her. And we lost her in 2018. So I didn't have much time for projects then. And that took most of my 2018 as well. So I really didn't come up for air from that till 2019 and started refocusing on the job. So I had been staring at it for about, a year or so, year and a half, because other than starting it, moving it around, and that was about it I was able to do for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, with the other things that were going on in my life. But then I finally started to look back at the project. And I have to admit, Gene, as I looked at it, I started to get a little nervous. Like I said, I did have bodywork experience, but this thing, again, getting into the framework was what was bothering me. And then I just didn't know all of the places that I was going to need to cut in order to put this thing together. Like I said, I had an entire rear clip from another car, and then I had my car. But where do you cut it? Where's the best places to make these seams?
And that's a 3D thought process, right? That's not two-dimensional, like putting a panel on the outside of something.
Right.
You got things that are crossing there.
And the whole time, it's the old saying, measure twice, cut once. Yep. And same thing with a car. Here I have this huge, beautiful piece, but where do I cut it in order to put it onto my car? Yeah. So that was, I thought about it. I looked at it. I thought about it, and I just was above my pay grade for what I was about to embark. Yeah. So I finally, towards the end of 2000, starting to get into 2019, I realized that I was going to need some help. So one of the best things about being a member of the Porsche Club is that you have plenty of resources when it comes time for something like this. So I started to reach out to various people in the club, looking for someone that had bodywork experience with Porsches. And I found this one guy. And so I talked to him. He was a member of the club, and he had done a number of restoration projects for other members. So I talked to him about my project, but I kept talking to him. He said he'd come over, and I call him, and he said he'd come over and take a look at it. And this was going on for months, and he was busy, and he couldn't come or whatever. And after a while, I got the impression that he wasn't interested in my project. So, but I was undeterred. So after I finally gave up on him, now we're into 2020. And so then I started to call another guy. I got another name, and I called this guy. And so he was much more receptive. He said, "Oh yeah, send me pictures. Tell me, show me what you're thinking of, and let me take a look at it." So I sent him a bunch of pictures, and again, another guy in Connecticut. So he had two guys that worked in the shop, and so I told him, I said, what I'm looking for. And again, I wasn't looking for a whole restoration. I'm just looking for somebody to help me do this metal work, get this section done. And so he looked at it for a couple of weeks, and he gets back to me, and he says, "Nah, it's not something I want to do." All right, so now I'm starting to get a little discouraged, but I wasn't going to be undeterred, so I went looking again. I called another independent shop in Connecticut, and I got another name. And I called this guy, Jim, who was the town over, and he was very receptive to the job. Matter of fact, as I described it, it became even a better match because he said, even though he was a body guy, he said, the part I don't really like is painting and doing the body work, but I love metal work. Well, guess what I need? Somebody to help me with the metal work.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a perfect match. So, and he was enthusiastic about my project too. So I called him up, and we talked about it. He said, "All right, let me come take a look at it." And he showed up. So, so he comes over, and he was a great guy. I explained to him what I was doing, and he said, "Yep." He says, "I get what you're doing. I can definitely help you out with this." And so the beauty of it, Gene, was I was going to be able to do the bulk of the work, keeping the price down and make it so that I only used him for the most skilled work that I wasn't comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And so it was, again, a perfect match.
Yeah.
So with that said, we kind of went over some general ideas, but he didn't have a lot of experience with transaxle cars, but he did have experience with Porsches, and he was enthusiastic for my project. So that's what was needed.
Yeah.
So with that said, we had COVID show up. So as you know,
I heard about that.
Yeah.
I heard about that COVID
about
thing.
COVID is that it canceled all our plans. So the wife and I had a couple of trips planned over the summer, and it was going to be a great summer with all kinds of traveling. We're gonna go to Europe and everything, and well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So next thing I do, I found myself with plenty of vacation time and no vacation. So guess what? I just happened to have something to do. So it worked out perfect in that respect as well.
Yeah.
So with having Jim, I was ready to start on the project. And so now we're in summertime. So now we're at the first big crossroads for the project. Looking at the piece that I had, the donor piece that I had, and the damage on the car that of the Matador, the one thing I was thinking about was I really wanted to replace every piece that was bent, but the twisted sheet metal of the trunk floor went even beyond the spare tire well into the trunk floor, and I had that piece, which was great. The problem was that the gas tank lied right underneath it.
Yep.
So that meant I would have had to drop the gas tank. And Gene, I don't have to tell you, right? You know what a pain in the neck that gas tank drop is.
Gotta take transaxle out.
That too. Plus, I hear there's more glue down there than you could fill a glue factory with. So I knew it was going to be a heck of a job. And then, just like you hinted, I found out that I was going to have to drop the transaxle as well.
Yeah.
So now it's like, oh my God, this thing's getting bigger and bigger. So then I looked at the project more. I looked at it, and then finally it dawned on me. You know what? That trunk floor is going to be covered by carpet anyways. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to have it at the spare tire well. I'm going to leave that alone. Yes, there's going to be a little twisted metal, but I can do I can do 95% of the work.
Yeah.
Or get rid of 90, even better than that, maybe 97% and avoid taking that gas tank down and avoid dropping that transaxle. So that was huge. Yeah. And again, I went over my approach with Jim, knowing he was going to be there with me, and he agreed. He felt that would definitely save a significant amount of scope on the project.
Sure.
So that was a big decision that determined what I was my approach I was going to do. So that said, August 1st, I started cutting and I started drilling spot welds. Now, Gene, it's interesting. Like I mentioned earlier, I've got a lot of experience with muscle cars. I've worked on a lot of Mopars through the years, Dodge Challengers and Cudas and all that stuff. So I had a lot of experience with that. But I became immediately impressed with the build quality of our Porsches. Yeah. I could not believe at some of the seams you would find not 2, not 3, not even 4, 5 layers of metal on some seams. It's amazing how well these things were put together.
Yeah.
But it also dictated that it was going to be a royal pain in the neck to try and do things at the seams. So as I researched the approach I was going to take, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to take the car apart exactly the way the factory put the car together. I would have to go outside the seams, so that way I can get into a buck weld or a lap weld. I wasn't going to have to take those seams apart, because again, you're looking at 5 layers of metal, and you want to get the layer 3 out, and it's like you got 2 layers below and 2 layers above. My God, tremendous amount of work. So it dictated how the approach. So
what were you cutting with, Jeff?
Most spot welds, and then I would use a grinder, a die grinder, which is like a 25,000 RPM. It's a really heavy disc that goes on there, and they use it to cut mufflers and exhaust pipes and stuff. And it does a nice straight cut. So what I ended up doing is for the B pillar, the C pillar, and the weld of the section around the back, I cut it straight. I didn't even get into the factory seams. I went next to it. And again, I'll send you a nice picture. It illustrates what I'm talking about. But again, doing lap welds and buck welds. And that made the ability to take that section apart much easier than what I would have had to do if I had to go with the factory seams. So again, and the other interesting thing is I had to do the same thing on the donor car as well. Again, drilling the same spot welds, making the same cuts. Again, trying to get to that puzzle piece that I was going to need to put onto my car. So as we went through the month of August, things got pretty ugly. I started cutting it off in sections. First was the rear tail section, then a little bit more of the tail section, then the quarter panel, and again, taking it back to the point where I could see where I was going to be able to make a puzzle piece that was going to work with from my donor car onto the new car, and do it in such a way that would work. The other thing, Gene, is that the car kind of would talk to you as you got a layer off. You would take a look at it, and you would say, well, I should stop here, or I should keep going. And again, it got to the point where I was really listening to the car, how it was telling me to adjust things, because again, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do when I started it. It wasn't until I got things off. And to give you a great example of that, the frame rail twisted very badly in the rear. It's not just from the accident, but also from getting pulled. So, but I was able to save a whole side section of it from the donor car all the way up to the wheel well, and then weld that along the side. And again, I have to show you a picture, but again, it resulted in a much stronger and structurally sound repair than what I originally thought I was going to do. And again, I had no clue that I could do that until I actually started taking both the pieces apart. So it was.
You know what the original impact was?
What was? No, I don't know what it was. I know it was underneath and very hard, but I don't know what hit it. Or
when I bought that white turbo, it was Miles's turbo.
Yeah,
had a side impact. He went into a ditch and hit like a fire hydrant or something. It was a pretty good shot right in the door.
I think it was the concrete structure over a culvert on a
it was some
intersection.
I think you're right, Trotty. And I took the car to a local body shop, and they were like, "Oh, we can knock this out." And I thought, "Wow, I might get lucky here." Hope Miles never finds out. And after about 4 days, they called me and said, "Come get your car. We can't do this." And it was those multi-interlaced layers that you're talking about,
right?
That they didn't know how to deal with, and they said they were going to have to cut the side of the car off to fix it.
Yes.
So, it's amazing the shot that car took, and I drove it for a few weeks. It drove nice and straight. Everything was fine, but it took one heck of a shot. So as you're talking about this, I'm picturing that car and some of that damage and what it was going to take to fix it.
Right. The other thing, Gene and Trotty, is I'm sure you're not surprised, there's nothing out there on the internet. I mean, there's so much information, but go to look for any kind of assistance. Yeah, exactly.
Plenty of information.
You can find some stuff on 944s, which is a little helpful, but I mean, it's basically nothing. I knew I was kind of writing the book as far as 968s go. And again, I was in the dark and feeling my way along the way. So if you're looking for information, Gene, as a 968 guy, when the subject matter is such that you can borrow from that, that's where you look. And again, 968 and 944 do share some common DNA. So again, I was able to find some stuff out there on my project that I was going to do based on the 944, but there was absolutely nothing for a 968.
Yep. Yeah, I know what it's like to plow that virgin land on certain things.
Hey, you know what? I take that very seriously. When I do, one of the reasons we're having this chat here is, again, I want others to be able to benefit from the pain, the success and the pain that I went through. So I will definitely be sharing my experience as time goes on in the many areas between the 968 register, you guys, my Porsche region, those places. I'll put the stuff out there so others can learn from what I went through.
Yeah.
Very good.
I know one of the most often asked questions that I see anyway on the different forums about the 968 is how many are left, right?
Yeah.
I think for a period of time, every time one was wrecked or showed up in an auction with a salvage title, people would run to Renless to see who could put it on first.
Right.
Oh, we've lost another one. But it's great that you're saving this. Now, do you refer to this car as the Matador?
I do.
That seems very American Motors to me.
Yeah. Well, again, when you're talking 968s, people know what it means. So,
yeah.
So in that respect, but you're right. That's true. They did make a Matador, and that wouldn't be a compliment.
Well, in some circles, it might be now.
No, they made some good AMC products, but I don't know if the Matador. I don't think I can ever recall one that is like a really good one.
Yeah.
They had the Javelins, the AMXs, the Rambler Scramblers, some of the Hearst editions and stuff, but I don't think they ever really did a good Matador. So, but the Matador red leather interior in a 968, that's another story.
Oh, I know. So we're in the story where we're like late August.
So, yeah, we're late August now. Again, Jim's been coming over. He was great. He came over a total of 3 times and checked on my progress and verified that I was going in the right direction and maybe offered a tweak here and in there. And that was exactly what I needed. I needed somebody who did it for a living that would be able to tell me, just validate that I was in the right direction, or, give me some kind of confirmation that, something needed to be changed or whatever. So that was invaluable to have him alongside. And I won't lie, he gave me a confidence level too. Just knowing that I had somebody that did it for a living looking over my shoulders to make sure that I was doing it right. So the big day came in September, I guess end of August, when I made the final cuts on the donor piece, and where I decided I was going to cut it, and that piece emerged from the shell of the entire rear clip that I have. And so I had my friend Paul come over one weekend, and he and we lifted it and brought it along back and put it on the back of the Matador. So for the first time, I got to see it, not attached permanently, but somewhat attached on the car to have it look like a straight car again. Yeah. And the interesting thing, Gene, I don't know if you've seen the pictures, but the donor car was iris blue. So it was quite the contrast with the white. But
I remember seeing those pictures when they first cropped up on Renlist, because admittedly here, this took a long time, right? Because we went from like 2017, 2018, 2019, all of a sudden 2020, you start to chat about it a little bit more, and all of a sudden the pictures show up, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it was like, the sky parted. It was just like,
that's right.
Boom.
I was doing it. So, and once I got going, and like I said, the work was fast and furious at that point.
Yeah.
So the other interesting thing is Jim. He runs a Porsche shop, and he does a lot of restorations, the 356s and 911s. But he was so impressed with my project, he let me cut in line. So he knew that he could do what I was looking for him to do with my help. He said he figured it'd take no more than a week. So as I made my progress, he figured out where he was going to let me cut in line and be able to bring the car over, and we would make it one. So that worked out to be the end of last week of September. So I got it all. Once I had that piece kind of placed on there, my friend Paul, like I said, he had come over. We took it off, put it on 6 times. Each time I trim a little bit more and pound a little bit more, and it would get on a little better. But I got it. It didn't go on as straight as I would have liked. So, but again, I knew that this is where we're getting into the skill level that's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
So one of the things I did is I did all the grinding. I put on weldable primer, which is a special type of primer you put on bare metal in anticipation of welding, and got it placed on there. So I would say when I put the piece on, it was about 70% correct. But again, that left a ways to go before it would be ready for welding. So the big day came. I worked with Jim. He figured out when he could have me come over. I sent down his buddy with the flatbed, and he was about half an hour away from my house. So we flatbedded the car up on a Sunday. I took 3 days off from the bank. And then on Monday morning, I showed up at the body shop bright and early at 8:30. My first day of employment at a body shop in 30 years. But it wasn't like much different from when I left it. So Jim, we took the piece off again. And the good thing about Jim, he was a perfectionist. He wanted this thing to be right. So we took it off. And again, he's looking at the piece, where it was. Now, the thing that made it most challenging was these cars, they're put together on a jig at the factory, and they assemble all the pieces from the inside out. And when you're doing that, things go together much smoother and straighter. But when you're sectioning on a piece from one car to another car, it's not going to go as easily as you might think. Like I said, if you were just doing one panel, it'd be okay. But I was doing the entire corner around to the rear as well, along with the inner wheel well and the trunk and the spare tire well, and it just wasn't going to go straight on. And that's where I really was thankful that I had Jim with me. So we spent the entire first day, again, Monday. He ended up we took the piece off twice. And again, making trimming, making adjustments to where it needed to be hit, and just getting it to fit right. And again, he got it right how it needed to be. And what he would do is when he would get a section right, he would drill a hole, and then he would put a sheet metal screw, and then he'd work it a little bit more and get it to fit nice. And again, we're looking at the door gap. We're looking at the gap from to the hatch. We're looking at how it fits together with the quarter panel on the other side. We're checking all that stuff, making sure it's straight and looking good. So we ended up taking it off twice, and then we ended up working it and getting it right to the point where we had a number of sheet metal screws in it Monday night. And so it looked pretty darn good. But funny thing was, I showed up first thing Tuesday morning, and he wasn't there yet. So we spent all Tuesday morning from 8:30 till lunchtime getting another % of perfection out of the way the thing looked. And again, I was so impressed with how he would work. We'd attach it over here, and then we'd work it over there just to try to get it to fit that much nicer. Again, you're seaming these lines. You're watching these lines come together from the two cars. You want them to be even. And so he would know how to work it and get it to fall in place. And again, it wasn't easy. I realized that I would have been in trouble if I even attempted to do this myself. So again, all Tuesday morning and getting it right. And then by lunchtime on Tuesday, she was ready to get welded. So Jim went to town, and he started welding, and it was amazing. I learned a few things that I hadn't seen before. He did the frame rail, he did all the other spot welds and everything else. Wednesday, he came in, we finished up the welding probably by lunchtime, and then he did the grinding, and the job was done as far as Jim's work by Wednesday full day. But again, and the best time, Gene, the best point was when we got the job all done, and I closed the hatch, the original hatch from the car, and it came down and closed into the open, to where it comes together on the blue section. It floop, it went down, and there was this nice, beautiful line where it was together. So the car was together, and I'll send you a picture of how that looked. But I just couldn't get used to it. I mean, after seeing it twisted and mangled for so many years, to see that beautiful blue structure, which was from the donor car, now melded and welded in one piece onto the Matador was just incredible to see how that looked. So that was truly exciting. So Thursday, the flatbed guy came and brought it back, and I went to work immediately, making sure that all the welds were covered up. I did the body work on the seams so that I could put paint on them because I didn't want any rust getting on them. And then in the trunk area, I did all the seam sealer and followed by undercoating, got that all set, and came out great. So I put the bumper on it, and a couple weeks later, I sent it out for a timing belt. And so it's looking like a car again, which is pretty darn cool. So I got a lot more to do, but I'm definitely over the hump, and it was quite a journey, a lot of luck. Again, I couldn't have done it without Jim, but I'm excited to get over it, and I can't wait to get it to the more fun stuff like restoring the interior and things like that. So that's pretty much the story of the Matador project.
Yeah. So when do you think it'll be back in paint, all one color?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. I did paint the bumper, which was from a black car, and I said to Greg, my son, I said, well, should I just throw some white paint on the quarter? He said, no. He said, leave it alone. It kind of has a character like that. It tells a story. So he's right. I'm going to leave it like that for a little while longer. Eventually, it will be all white. But just to give you an idea, I'm not going to paint inside where the trunk is. Again, I'm going to let that tell the story of the car. I didn't want to hide. I wasn't trying to hide anything. People were fascinated by the story, so people are going to know what it was, and that's fine. It's not going to be a concourse car ever, not like my other cars. But it's a cool car, and it's going to be a great car when it's done. I hope to get it registered in the spring, and I'm really going to enjoy this one because unlike the other ones, which are show cars, this one I'll be able to drive and have a good time with.
You know, it almost is like bring that to Porsche Parade, right? Just because there's so much story there.
Exactly.
Even with the blue corner on it.
That's right. And remember, we got the red interior, so we got the red, white, and blue theme going.
There you go.
You can't beat that.
Right. Yep.
You can't beat that. What are you gonna do about interior pieces?
Well, that is going to be really hard. I'm probably going to have to get the seats. The front seats need to be redone. So I'm probably going to have to have somebody, make some leather for me because that marbled Matador red leather is, like I said, practically impossible to find. So, so that's going to be a tough one. And by the way, they did offer that color on 928s and 911s as well. Super rare there as well, but you will see it occasionally there as well.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, that's a great story. I know that people were kind of questioning it along the way. Why are you rescuing this one? But I can see why. It's just it's a one of two.
One of two.
Yeah. That's
it. It tells me that with some determination and some passion.
And Jim.
That's right.
That you can rebuild pretty much anything. I mean, I've always heard that Porsches with even small hits, they total them. So, and this is an incredible story that you're bringing this thing back to life.
Yep. And like I said, I got a big appreciation for how well these cars are built, much more so than I did going into it. Like I said, I'd had experience working on other cars, and when I saw again 5 layers of metal, it's like, wow, these things are built to last. So I was impressed by it. But no question about it, Trotty. I had a number. It's one of those stories where a number of things came together. I don't know if I hadn't found Jim after striking out twice before him, I may have, I don't know what I would have done. Meanwhile, Gene somebody called me and was looking for an engine, and it's like, oh boy, you know, I've got 3,500. I'll give you the engine. Oh boy, you know, it's like thinking about that. I could have definitely been, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. I bought the car to fix it. I really wanted to save it. So I'm really glad it turned out, and I'm really excited that it's a car again.
You're a better man than I, because I would have just taken the interior out of it and stuck it in something else and called it a day.
There you go. But you wouldn't have had that code.
I wouldn't have had the code.
That's right.
That's
you know me. I'm all about the codes.
I know.
So I'll keep you posted on my other progress. Like I said, it's getting mechanically better all the time as I fix other things. And again, I'm really excited to jump on that interior. Probably that'll be next year. And like I said, then I can start to enjoy it. I wouldn't even hesitate driving it to the parade. You know, I know it's going to be in French Lick next year. But again, this is a kind of car where you can just enjoy it. And it's got an interesting story. It's rare, but it's usable. So that's going to be a nice change for me. So
yeah. So how do people get a hold of you, Jeff?
Well, you can always go to 968register.org. That is the register website. And you'll also find my name and email listed at the end of any Panorama magazine. That's the Pano magazine, which is the one that Porsche Club puts out under registers. As you know, I'm the 968 register advocate, so you can always find my name there.
And Jim, how do they get hold of Jim?
He's keeping low. He doesn't want to get inundated with work. He's plenty busy. And if those 911 guys know he let me cut in line, they'd get mad.
Yeah. Maybe his name's not even really Jim. Maybe it's something else.
No, it's Jim. It's Jim.
Well, perfect. Well, Jeff, appreciate you jumping on again and telling us the story. And we'll have you back on with your next project.
Okay, great. And I'll send you those pictures. Guys,
thanks, please do that.
I'll keep you posted, and have a good night.
Perfect.
You too, buddy. Thank you.